Opinions are like, well, let's just say everybody has one. But in the prepping world, I found there's a lot of group think. Preppers are usually aligned on the hows and whys of prepping, but I have potentially unpopular prepping beliefs that might rock the boat. You're bound to disagree with me on at least a few of these opinions. First unpopular opinion I have is that preppers overemphasize end of the world scenarios. I'm starting off with this one because this will form the basis for a few other opinions that will follow. Why do we prep? Because the world could plunge into darkness, society could collapse, and it's every prepper for themselves, right? As riveting as it sounds to gear up for a Mad Max scenario, let's hit the brakes on the war rig and look at the odometer of reality for a second. Statistics clearly show that natural disasters, not cataclysmic, end of the world, Tiatwaki type situations, are what we should really be focused on, at least to start. According to the Center for Research on the Epidemiology of Disasters, CRED, in the last decade there have been over 6,000 recorded natural disasters worldwide. That's an average of about 600 a year, real-life shakeups like hurricanes, floods, and wildfires. FEMA recommends that households have a basic emergency kit that could sustain them for at least 72 hours. That's because the most common emergencies we face are usually short-term, think blizzards and power outages. While it's always a good idea to be prepared, I'm advocating for a shift in focus, to move from possibilities to probabilities. Odds are much higher that you're going to need to know how to safely purify water after a flood, well before you're ever going to need to know how to navigate a radioactive wasteland. All of that said, I also believe in preparing for more serious situations. After all, our world is far more fragile than it has ever been. Our reliance on modern technology makes us very vulnerable. Long gone are the days of local food systems where you either grew your own food or you knew the farmer and butcher down the street. Technology impacts our food, water, finances, transportation, communication, everything. It's also worth noting that all empires eventually fall. One day, someday, for some reason, the American empire will fall, and it could be ugly if and when that does happen. However, we'll have a natural disaster before that event happens, and then another, and then another. But the good news here is that preparing for natural disasters are like baby steps to preparing for more serious events. So if you're preparing for an extended power outage from a winter storm, that can be seen as a baby step toward preparing for total zombie apocalypse. The second unpopular opinion I have, which is somewhat related to the first, is that the end is not just around the corner, or at least I hope it isn't. I say this is an unpopular opinion because it's in stark contrast to what a lot of other preppers say in their videos and on their websites. The end is always near, and they have some inside tip. A friend of a friend of a friend who is a contractor for the Department of Defense told them that something big is brewing. And if you listen to these Chicken Littles long enough, you'll start to get sucked in and believe it too. And while they're stocking up on credibility with tales of insider info, the rest of us are wondering if we should cancel next weekend's barbecue because martial law is coming. But here's the thing, predicting the collapse of civilization is about like predicting the weather. You might be able to see a storm brewing, but to say that we're going to have torrential downpour on Tuesday at 3:17 p.m., well, if somebody says that, they're probably selling umbrellas. The truth is, society is more resilient than we give it credit for. Yes, it has its faults, but it's stood up a lot more than we realize. The economy is a prime example. I've been hearing professional preppers say the economy is on the verge of collapse for at least the last 20 years. Literally. Let's just say I'm glad I haven't let them guide my retirement planning, or I'd have negative gains. Could we face another Great Depression? Sure. Am I betting my retirement accounts on it? No. So while it's sensible to be prepared for disruptions because, let's face it, life loves to throw us a curveball, listening to Chicken Littles can be exhausting. Sitting on the edge of your seat as you prep is anxiety-inducing, and that can be counterproductive to prepping because it just leads to stress and burnout. As for that insider information, I would take that with a grain of salt. And that barbecue next weekend, it's still on. Next up on my unpopular opinion list is accumulating an arsenal, or stockpiling firearms. And I touched on this in my last video on 9 prepper mistakes that people make. Now, before you think I'm going to go all waving a peace flag, hear me out. I believe in the right to bear arms. However, I'm not sure it's necessary to bear an entire military arsenal in my living room. My garage maybe, but certainly not my living room. Prepper forums are filled with people who believe that when the collapse hits, it's the person with the most ammunition who wins. Now, pause to ponder for a second. What are we really aiming for? No pun intended. Are we aiming for a scene from an action movie or practical preparedness? Firearms are tools, vital, powerful, and not to be taken lightly. The goal is security, not reenacting a scene from The Terminator. Not until Skynet awakens, anyway. The reality is that most of the challenges we'll face after a crisis cannot be solved by firepower alone. And if you look at history, the real MVPs of survival after a crisis are things like community, communication, problem solving, skills, knowledge, abilities, that sort of thing. Layers of preparedness like food, water, shelter, they're the real bedrock of personal preparedness. Guns play a role, yes, but they don't steal the show. I get it. There's comfort in the clink of loading a magazine and knowing that you could defend your home if you had to, but don't get carried away. The last time I checked, ammo doesn't taste great and bullets make terrible band-aids. So am I saying don't stockpile guns and ammo? No, you certainly want enough to be able to defend your home should SHTF occur, but you also probably don't need so much that you could wage a small war. That's unnecessary and it's a poor use of financial resources, money that could be much better spent in other preparedness efforts. Remember, if the goal is to rebuild society after a catastrophe, I'd wager that seeds and water filters will be worth their weight in gold long before we need to worry about which caliber is king. Remember that a well-rounded prepper is more than their arsenal. It's about being prepared for a full spectrum of scenarios, not just the ones that go bang. Moving along to the next unpopular opinion that I have, silver and gold are good to stock.
Silver and gold, silver and gold. Everyone wishes for silver and gold.
In many prepping circles, gold and silver is seen about as useful as a chocolate teapot. You can't patch a roof with gold and you can't eat silver. And they're right. Useless, they say, as they prepare for a world where bottle caps will be the currency of choice. But gold has been used around the world for over 5,000 years, serving as a currency, a symbol of wealth, and a store of value. When empires crumbled, when currencies deflated to the worth of confetti, gold remained the star of the show. Even in modern times, amid economic turbulence, gold retains its value. In the 2008 financial crisis, while the stock market took a nosedive, gold prices soared by over 25%. Why? Because gold is considered a financial safe haven, a financial bomb shelter, if you will. And it's not just about their shiny status, it's about intrinsic value. Where is the value in a $100 paper bill? It's nothing but paper. The value is in the pledge from the government. Where's the value in a silver eagle? Well, it's the metal itself. Here's the value. And let's not forget that while you can't eat silver, you can't eat a $100 bill either, though I suppose there's probably plenty of roughage and fiber in this, but it's only as good as the faith that we put in it. Governments can print more money, but they can't conjure up more gold and silver. This is why when currencies falter, these metals often surge. Sure, in a Mad Max scenario, precious metals might not get you as far as gasoline, but let's be practical and revisit unpopular opinion number 1. How many times in history have we truly reset to zero? Not often. More commonly, we see economies shake, falter, but eventually stabilize. In these times, gold and silver really shine. No pun intended. I'm not advocating that you turn your entire nest egg into a pirate's treasure, but I also think it's reasonable and wise to at least have some stocked away. It's value that is intrinsic, that you can take with you, and for preppers, we're preparing for turbulent times, and precious metals love turbulent times. In the end, as I've said before, balance is key. You don't want a bunch of junk food in your diet, but a little bit of junk silver in your finances. That can't hurt. If you want to get started with some silver or gold, or you're looking to stack on top of your stack, check the link in the description for one of my favorite online retailers. Are you sitting down for this one? Because if number 4 gave you convulsions, this one's going to send you into a full-blown seizure. Ready for it? Bitcoin is also good for preppers. Now I can almost hear you gasping through the screen. It's all tech, you say. There's no tangibility. Worse than gold, there's no intrinsic value. I hear you cry. Now hear mine. First of all, let me be very clear that I'm not talking about any CBDCs, which are central bank digital currencies. I'm talking about Bitcoin and a few other large cap digital currencies that are not affiliated with any government whatsoever. Bitcoin, the granddaddy of cryptocurrencies, was born out of a libertarian ideal. It's a currency that thumbs its nose at centralized control, not issued by any government or central bank, and that's the beauty of it. Much like gold, there's a cap on how much Bitcoin there can be. Only 21 million Bitcoins will ever exist. This scarcity is part of what gives Bitcoin its value, mirroring the finite nature of precious metals. Now, what about the Ponzi scheme accusations with cryptocurrencies and people constantly getting scammed? Yes, this is a bit of a Wild West period, particularly with what's called altcoins or alternative coins. Alternative being alternative to the big players, mainly Bitcoin and Ethereum. But lumping those two in with all of the altcoins is a bit like lumping cash US dollars in with monopoly money. These frontrunner coins have established themselves as real world assets with real world uses. They are digital gold. And you can see the similar use cases with physical gold. In countries that are rife with conflict and hyperinflation, Bitcoin has been an asset that citizens flock to for financial safety. Take Venezuela, for example, where the bolivar has been battered by hyperinflation. Citizens have turned to Bitcoin to preserve and move their wealth, sidestepping the crumbling conventional banking system. And yes, while Bitcoin transactions are traceable since they're recorded on a public ledger, it's not as simple as tracking a bank account. The government can't just press a button and freeze your digital wallet. Bitcoin operates peer-to-peer. It's like the digital equivalent of handing cash under the table, but on a global scale. The dark underbelly of finance has noticed this too. It's no secret that unsavory characters leverage cryptocurrency because they're tougher to track and seize. It's not an endorsement of their actions, but a testament to the technology's ability to preserve user autonomy. What's more, you don't need a smartphone or a computer to transact in Bitcoin or other big currencies. In fact, you can do it over ham radio. Now, what about all of these reports of hackers going in and stealing digital currencies, robbing people of their digital funds? Yes, that happens, but it often happens on less secure systems or exchanges, and there are easy steps that you can take to assure that that doesn't happen to your digital funds. You want to use what's called a hard wallet. This Ledger Nano S is an example of that. A soft wallet, by comparison, is a digital wallet online where you store your funds, and that is where they are most susceptible. If you wanted super secure digital currency storage, you take them entirely offline in a hard wallet like this. I'll add a link in the description in case you want to get one. But this is a way that, if particularly in countries, third world countries, where there's hyperinflation and corrupt governments who are really like stealing from the citizens, and you've got money and you want to get it off the books, this is it. And this is why it should appeal to preppers. And preppers often have that libertarian bend, right? They have that libertarian interest or belief in many cases. That's consistent with digital currencies, not issued by any government. So while Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're not coins that you can hold in your hand per se, and your local farmer likely isn't accepting them yet, but you'll notice many online gun stores, particularly those that have a libertarian belief, they're accepting digital currencies. Like any good prepper knows, it's not about putting all of your eggs in one basket or all of your coins in one wallet, all of your wealth into one asset. I like Bitcoin, I like Ethereum, I like digital currencies, and I see a use case for preppers. Now that we got the worst of the unpopular opinions out of the way, let's consider another opinion that probably is less controversial, but some people just sort of overlook it, if you will. Physical and mental health are undervalued as preps. And in the world of prepping, where everything is gadgets and gear, it's easy to overlook our most important assets, our mind and our bodies. I mean, we preppers, we do love our toys, don't we? We like to open new products, battery banks or ferro rods, and there's satisfaction to be found when you master the craft of making a fire or building a shelter in the woods. But Even the most advanced firearm and the best ferro rod are not going to save an unhealthy body and a weak mind after a collapse. Staying physically healthy is your best bet for requiring less medical care post collapse when the local clinic might just be a distant memory. It's not just about the ability to sprint away from danger or outlast a food storage, it's about the daily grind after a collapse when the conveniences of modern healthcare are no longer a given. In mental health, that's the silent attribute of survival. The constant barrage of doom and gloom and the end is nigh headlines, it's enough to fray the nerves of even the most stoic prepper. The reality is, when shit hits the fan, the mental strain will be immense. If you're not mentally fit, the risk of cracking under pressure skyrockets. Your bug out bag might have everything that you need for a 72-hour bug out, but your body and your mind, those are the two things that are going to keep you going. The next unpopular, or at least less popular opinion that I have is that community is superior to individualism. I'm talking about the fallacy of the self-reliant individual go-it-alone prepper. The image of the rugged individualist, a lone wolf braving the post-collapse world with nothing but a backpack and a can-do attitude, is as pervasive as it is misleading. The truth is, the go-it-and-do-it-all-alone prepper is more of a fallacy than a reality. Humans are social creatures, and our ancestors knew this. It wasn't the lone hunter who brought back the mammoth, it was the tribe. In a crisis, the reality is that the strength of the community determines whether it's thriving after a collapse or just surviving after a collapse. Collective skills, shared resources, and the mutual support create a safety net that no amount of solo prepping can match. Think about it. If you're sick or injured, that cache of supplies isn't going to bandage your wound or nurse you back to health. Your neighbors, however, they just might. This doesn't mean you shouldn't be personally prepared to prepare for yourself and your immediate loved ones. You should, but to believe that you can just go it alone against chaos is to ignore the lessons of history. From barn raisings to group hunts, people have accomplished more together than they have on their own. Now, fostering a community in an environment where individual rights and freedoms trump all else, well, it can be difficult. It's easy to lose sight of the interconnectedness when we're bombarded with messages that glorify the self-made man, but in the wake of a disaster, it's the community-made man who will lead the way. So how do we shift from me to we? Well, we talk with our family, we talk with our friends, we get out into the community, we discuss things with our neighbors, not necessarily prepping to start, but at least engaging with others. And preppers, there are many, many preppers, so you can find people in your area and create what are called MAGs, mutual assistance groups. Those are going to be very powerful after a collapse. The myth of the self-sufficient prepper is just that. It's a myth. When the chips are down, it's the people that come together who thrive. My final unpopular, or at least less popular opinion is that technology should not be ruled out. The crinkle of a map is as comforting as the crackle of a campfire. And the beep of a GPS, that's apt to raise the eyebrows of some preppers who think that this is all just wasted effort after the collapse. I get it. I used to be in that camp myself when people would ask me, how do you prepare for a world post-EMP when readily available energy is no longer the norm and many technological devices no longer operate? I would tell people, well, start living your life by reducing your dependence on those energy sources and tools today. So that could mean installing a wood stove or, wiring up some gas lights, for example. But you really can't underscore enough the importance of technology today and post-collapse, because if you have operating technology post-collapse, you've got a significant upper hand on those who don't. And that EMP threat looms large, sending our devices into a tailspin and no longer having access to everything that's on our smartphones or on our computers today. So if you haven't read this book before, I'd highly recommend it. I'll put a link in the description. Report of the Commission to Assess the Threat to the United States from an EMP Attack. This will give you as good of information as you can get on the Commission's tests on what an EMP would actually do to automobiles and electronics and society at large. Today's technology offers many methods to keep gadgets going when the grid is down. Portable solar chargers, hand crank generators, and even pedal powered energy can resuscitate a dead battery, keeping electronics alive well after a collapse. Consider the humble laptop or tablet. These can hold an entire library's worth of information in your backpack. The right digital library can hold the sum of human knowledge, from crop rotation schedules to medical encyclopedias, all in a package weighing less than a stack of survival manuals. There are plenty of survival situations that you might face that are short of an EMP. And if you have to bug out and go cross country or even through an urban area, this is going to get you there a heck of a lot faster than laying out your map, drawing your lines, and following a compass. And speed is critical in a bug out. So while it's prudent to be prepared for a world without power, don't rule out the power of technology. Ruling out technology is ruling out a tool as powerful as a ferro rod or firearm, maybe even more so. So that's the extent of my unpopular opinions. Hopefully you've made it this far in the video and have not yet unsubscribed. If you haven't subscribed, maybe you'll consider doing that. But more importantly, let me know in the comments section what opinions I have that you agree with or disagree with, and I'm particularly curious what unpopular opinions you have that I may not have mentioned. Hasta luego, mis amigos.